We will begin with the first talker is Guilherme Oyarzabal. He will talk about friend and foe, ecosystem management, and functional diversity of spiders.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Camilo, can you say to me when I reach 10 minutes or?
Yes, at
Okay.
10 minutes, I will give you a short.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Guilherme. I'm a PhD candidate from Brazil, and this is a piece of one of my chapters, some results of one of my chapters, my dissertation chapters, and it's entitled Friend and Foe, Ecosystem Management and Functional Diversity of Spiders. As an outline of this presentation, I will first present to you some context of my subject, some methods, results, a little bit of discussion, some conclusions and perspectives. So, arthropods. Arthropods are the main faunal component of many ecosystems around the world. And as other organisms like plants and other animals, they also suffer some anthropogenic impacts like silviculture, monoculture, cattle raising, and fire. Specifically for spiders, depending of what type of anthropogenic impact you're looking for or where you're looking for, this impact on spider diversity can be good or bad. Sometimes, in some places, spider diversity is enhanced by anthropogenic impact, and sometimes they suffer for anthropogenic impact. With that, we can say that historically, usually taxonomic diversity is the main focus when you are studying some spiders and environmental impact. And the problem with this, that usually richness and abundance with a taxonomic perspective is not a good subject to interpret impacts on spider diversity. This could lead us to many erroneous conclusions regarding some losses and gains of taxonomic and even functional diversity to spiders, since 100 species, when you compare two places with impact and without impact, 100 species, it's equal in two places, even that different places are different because of the anthropogenic impact. With that, we can say that just taxonomic richness and taxonomic abundance is not enough to say how the diversity of spiders is changing due to the anthropogenic impact. And sometimes we have to consider functional diversity and functional composition to say how this diversity is changing due to these impacts. Based on that, we made some objectives and hypotheses and predictions to our work. In the first step, we are treating spiders as a single group in a taxonomic perspective, and we are trying to see if really richness and abundance change comparing different anthropogenic impacts. After that, we're gonna reinterpret the literature, accommodating these spiders in spider guilds, and again, investigate the anthropogenic impact. With that, we can hypothesize that the taxonomic richness and abundance will not change. These spiders' taxonomic richness and abundance will not change. And we can hypothesize that actually the guild richness and guild abundance will change based on the anthropogenic impact. In a term that we predict that high impact will correlate negatively with spider diversity. How we did that? First, we made a systematic review of the literature from the year 2009 to 2019, looking for spiders around the world. Since we can study all the anthropogenic impacts that spiders can suffer, we focus on worldwide grazing pressure. So we study places where cattle is raised and focusing on spider diversity. having this word spider diversity, we focus and separate these spiders in guilds, and you use Cardozo and collaborators 2011 to distribute these spiders in 8 guilds: ambush hunters, warp weavers, sense webs, specialists, ground hunters, space webs, sheet webs, and other hunters. Here it's a picture more or less of species that simulates to what these guilds are. After this, we made a gigantic and enormous planetary spreadsheet, pun intended, with all these species, all these families, and all this data regarding abundance and presence of all these spiders. After this, with all this data, we made GLM models to make a statistical analysis of all of this. What we found? Well, we found, we more or less reached 10,000 papers, and from these 1,000 papers, we ended up with 79 papers that are across that have data across the world. The important thing here to highlight is that countries as US, Brazil, India, and China, that is the countries that more produce meat in the world, are very underrepresented in our papers. So maybe this result is based to places like Europe and not places where really meat is produced, like the countries that I said before. So we need more data from these places regarding spider diversity and cattle grazing or meat production. And with this, we really don't see any difference regarding taxonomic richness and taxonomic abundance when we are comparing places with cattle grazing or grazing at all and places without grazing. For guilds, however, we found that intermediate impact and the negative impact on orb weavers, sense webs, and specialist guilds. Here in this graph, you can see abundance in the Y frame and grazing density on the X frame. Here in our left side, it's low grazing, and the right side is high grazing. And we can see that warp weavers and sense webs have a turn up U shape, showing that intermediate impact is good for this, for guild abundance of this species. And for the specialists, their abundance is lower when high grazing compared to low grazing. We can explain this result by a need for these guilds for a three-dimensional vegetal structure to they live, to they hunt. So they probably need this structure to live in these places, in these environments, and with lower grazing or high grazing, the vegetative structure are not good enough to them to live. So in a intermediate impact, they have more a complex or different types of vegetal structure that can enhance their diversity, their guild abundance. For other guilds, like for guild richness of ground hunters, other hunters, space webs, and sheet webs, we can see also a U shape, but not reverse this time. And we can see that low, high impact are beneficial for ground hunters, other hunters, and space webs, and is grazing, it's negative for sheet webs. In this case, we can interpret the result with species loss and species turnover. In the case of sheet webs, it's species loss due to high grazing, and in case of ground hunters, other hunters, and space webs, it's a species turnover in a way that when in low grazing, these guilds have, they are known to have little small bodies species and little big bodies species. So in a low grazing, all these environments are being dominated by low body size of these guilds, and in a high grazing with less vegetal density, these places are being occupied by high body mass or size of these same guilds. In a case of mixed grazing and ambush hunters, we found out that mixed grazing, and when I say mixed grazing, it's places with two ruminants in the same place, or one ruminant and a mowing regime or something like that. And we found an effect that richness and abundance of ambush hunters, it's rise, it's enhanced based on this type of management. And this can be explained since these ambush hunters are capable of adopting different hunter strategies, sometimes in the ground, sometimes in leaf, sometimes in a kind of substrate. And since they can change these hunter strategies, they can be enhanced by even being in a place with some anthropogenic impact, like mixed grazing, they can be enhanced due to this capacity of different hunter strategies.
10 minutes.
Thank you. So we conclude that I know that's a bold statement, but I would say that we should stop using just taxonomic diversity with richness and abundance as a proxy for spider diversity. Diversity is a conjunction of many things, not just taxonomic, but diversity, but functional diversity, as I said during all my presentation, in a term of composition, and even phylogeny. And I even start to talk about phylogeny, that it's another step, but it's an important step to understand how spider diversity are changing due to anthropogenic impacts. And it's always important to remember that even in a single spider family, spiders are not a homogeneous group. So treating them as such will probably mask some important effects that are other species and other groups of spiders are suffering due to anthropogenic impacts. So we know that spiders are very diverse, and we always have to consider this diversity to explain how spiders are suffering many anthropogenic impacts that we are having now. I'd like to thank you all for listening to me. Muito obrigado, gracias, and I hope you have some questions. Thank for all my agencies that give me money to do all this project, my institutions and the labs I'm participating now. Thank you.
Thank you, Guilherme. We have some time for a couple of questions. Okay, we can wait one more minute. There is one question from Mike Drowning.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there is one guild system that could work in all biomes habitats? That seems unlikely to me.
No, definitely not. Just if we just have one guild in a system on environment, this first thing that led me to think that this environment is not in a good shape. It's not preserved, and it's not like they don't have mixed and heterogeneity structure to be able to accommodate other spiders or different spiders, actually. So I don't think that a biome or habitat with just one guild, it's a good habitat.
One more question, quick, please, is wonderful talk from Prashant. How does phylogenetic endemism compare to phylogenetic diversity as a proxy for diversity?
Actually, I don't know. I didn't study enough phylogenetic diversity to answer your question. So yeah, if I would say that a place it's have a phylogenetic endemism, maybe there this phylogenetic diversity will not be enough. But I can't answer your question because I don't have knowledge enough to phylogenetic diversity to answer. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Guilherme. We have to move on.